the Sixers on Saturday, locking down MVP candidate Joel Embiid and capped off a week where they went 3-1 against some of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. What stood out? What does it all mean, if anything? We'll answer that and more, make some predictions for this week's slate of games, and bring you the latest updates on Victor Oladipo. Kick off your week right here on Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Heat Nation. It's a Monday edition of Locked On Heat, your daily podcast covering all things Miami Heat, however you may be listening or watching on YouTube, Odyssey, or on your favorite podcast app. Thank you so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm David Ramil, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Wes Goldberg. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Miami was one Drew Holiday layup away from a 4-0 week against the Bulls, the Bucks, the Nets, and the Sixers. And while those teams were missing key players, the Heat did all that without starting point guard Kyle Lowry. Jumping ahead of myself, that they've gone 8-2 over the last 10 games, and they've got a solid 3-game lead over every team to stay atop the Eastern Conference. We'll step out for a big picture of what Miami's successful week means, and Nostradamus will gaze into the unknown and make his return later on the show before we look at Erik Spoelstra's latest cryptic comments about Victor Oladipo. But before that, Wes, I was at FTX Arena on Saturday to see the Philadelphia game, an electric, fun atmosphere, despite James Harden missing the game, and just wanted to see if anything stood out to you about the 99-82 victory for the Heat.
Erik Spoelstra's coaching, right? There's a lot that we could take away from that Sixers game. Maybe not as much. You and I were really looking forward to seeing how they would guard James Harden and Joel Embiid, because that duo has been unstoppable since they got together after the deadline. But either way, Joel Embiid is the favorite to win MVP, and defending him is a really hard thing to do. It's a very tall task. And something that just stands out to me about Erik Spoelstra, and I guess about good coaching in general, right? It's harder to see good coaching than it is bad coaching, right? Harder to recognize a really good coaching job than it is a bad coaching job. And that's sort of kind of the MO with Erik Spoelstra. Is he's not drawing up these he is really great at the sideline out of bounds and out of timeout plays, but nothing like crazy that's blowing your mind outside of like that Kyle Lowry thing earlier in the season that got some social media play. But it's just, he doesn't make bad decisions. Everything he does from a game plan perspective makes sense. And it's very rare that you watch a Miami Heat game and they're going against Joel Embiid or Kevin Durant, Giannis, all these other guys that we're talking, DeMar DeRozan, and you're like, I don't get it. Why are you defending this star player like that? You don't watch a Heat game and think that ever. Ever. 100. And that to me is a testament to Erik Spoelstra's coaching job. What they did to Joel Embiid, he shot 27% in that game. The MVP this year. Like if the season stopped right now, he would probably be voted MVP.
Top 3 candidate for sure.
Top 2 probably, on most ballots probably, yeah. And they stonewalled him. And just the amount that it wasn't anything, again, it wasn't like some crazy gimmicky defense, right? They threw a little bit of zone out here and there, but that's no longer really a gimmick in today's NBA. Every team is doing it. Thanks to Erik Spoelstra, by the way, who brought it out in the zone a couple years ago, or in the bubble a couple years ago. But just timely double teams, timely triple teams. Just everybody was on a string. Hey, when Joel Embiid is in the corner, we're not going to be afraid to triple team him, because if he picks up his dribble, he's not making the pass out of that corner. We're not going to do that in the middle of the floor with Joel Embiid, because he's still big enough and a skilled enough passer to kill us. What we'll do is a late in the shot clock double team, so that even if he does pass it out, and we trust our other weak side defenders to close out strong, to force quick shots, and we're not running, and then we're not ending up in a scrambled defense type of situation, right? Everything is so well scouted, so well game planned. Everybody is coached up before every game. It's just great coaching. And they were without Kyle Lowry for this. They were out Jimmy Butler last week too. But it was just the Bucks game, the Nets game, the Bulls game, the Sixers game over the weekend. Just that's what my big takeaway from that stretch was just, this guy should be coach of the year.
Yeah,
and we need to stop debating it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty clear. He's not going to win the award just because he doesn't have the right storyline backing him up, as good as he is. And I'm starting to see much more recognition around reporters and even
Yeah.
casual fans
He could win it.
recognizing Erik Spoelstra. I just don't see him. He's recognized as the greatest coach of the game, not necessarily the coach of the year because it's somebody in Memphis or Cleveland or a team
Yeah.
that's gotten the most out of those respective groups when nobody expected them to be as good as they
Right.
are. Miami had all the expectations already heaped on them before the season even started, and they just kind of lived up to them and surpassed them to some degree, but not to the same level as the other candidates. But the defense of Joel Embiid, as you pointed out, great point right there, because I just like watching it in person and watching this huge behemoth of a body out there just look completely flummoxed. He was absolutely thrown off. Like he had no idea what to do, whether it was Bam and Jimmy or Jimmy and Caleb Martin or Max Struess or anybody, PJ Tucker, all of them being able to at least present a challenge right away, throw a body at him, and then have somebody else kind of swing over with a double and triple team, as you pointed out on occasion, too, really threw him off. It was fantastic. Great quote from Doc Rivers about it, too. We came out in the second half and put him on the elbow, speaking about Embiid, which is very
Right.
difficult to double, and he has a lot of success there. I thought Miami's toughness hurt us tonight. They denied us and got into our bodies. You should never allow a guy to deny you a catch, and I bet that happened 10 times tonight. They played in our airspace. We didn't play in there.
Yeah.
So that was great. And what I took away from the Philadelphia matchup and kind of looked out as far as the past week, something we've been talking about so well, pretty frequently, I think, is that not just the defense against Embiid, but as you kind of hinted at, they're able to defend almost anybody in a variety of different ways. Where there
Mhm.
is a DeRozan, they could challenge DeRozan, limit his touches, throw him off, keep him from that 30-point streak the way he was going before he even played Miami. Then Giannis, they throw a wall. Kevin Durant, they challenged him too, made him uncomfortable, physical with him. Guys like Max Struess, Gabe Vincent, Caleb, everybody challenging Durant. And then yesterday against Joel Embiid, well, you look at that, those four of the best players in the NBA, and Miami had their way with all of them to varying degrees, and it led to a very successful week. Again, one holiday layup away from a sweep over the past week against the best teams in the Eastern Conference, and that's why I'm so encouraged by this past week and how it kind of projects out regarding Miami and their
Yeah.
chances in the
Well,
playoffs. I think they're a
good point.
legitimate title contender.
Erik Spoelstra is not going to get outcoached in any series, right? We
No.
know that. And so and you and I have talked about the weaknesses and the strengths of this Heat team relative to the competition that they'll face in the Eastern Conference and potentially in the NBA Finals. The one thing that they're going out, look, they might not have the most talented singular player in every series or maybe even any series, right? That's quite possible too. But they will have the best coach in every series. And I don't know how much that
We made
matters,
these we
but I
made
know
these
it
points
matters
during the bubbles
a
too.
bit.
We made these
Yeah.
points during the bubble. I think a lot of people started looking, you know what? During the bubble, you really saw the best version of Spoelstra get the most out of those teams. And yes, you needed great performances from Goran and Jimmy and everybody else, but Spo really did a masterful job of the bubble. And I think we can anticipate that this year as well, because he has the tools in the toolbox where he can get creative, where he can do so many different things. And the past week was evidence of that. I think that's the kind of point that you're getting at. Yeah.
Yeah, and can I one more thing too, just about Erik
Yeah.
Spoelstra, kind of macro
Yeah.
level stuff here. But
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody over the weekend, and I mentioned you're watching Erik Spoelstra. You and I are in these press conferences and stuff, and he doesn't particularly enjoy the press conferences. But he
No.
doesn't like hate them either. He does them. But after a win like the one in Philadelphia, you can kind of see he's feeling himself a little bit, right?
Yep.
Like the chains out, he's having a good time. Like he's feeling himself a little bit.
Saturday night, he's ready to party.
Right. Yeah. And you recognize something in there, right? Is this guy recognizes in himself that he is in the top 1% of his profession. Nobody's
Right.
better than him at what it is that he does. That plus the ultimate job security. There is nothing that Erik Spoelstra could do short of illegal activity that he would lose his job for at this point, right?
Yeah.
He could go 0-82 next year and he would keep his job, right? Like that's not even debate. Like he would. There is nothing this guy could
Don't you
do to
put
get
that
fired.
evil on us, Wes. Come on, man. Don't do that. Oh, and
But like,
82. That's fine.
this guy just has the ultimate sense of comfortability in but also confidence in what it is that
Well,
he
he's worked
does.
for it. Yeah.
He's absolutely,
Confidence fueled
he's
by
absolutely earned
preparedness.
it.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
absolutely earned it. And growing and starting from the video coordinator position to that's why he
Yeah.
can do things like he did to Joel Embiid. He can see, okay, this is what I could do to flummox this kind of star player because he came up in the video room. That was his job was to make those sort of tips to the coaching staff. Hey, this is what I noticed. A couple like bullet points, boom, boom, boom. Now he's taken those bullet points and just made a career out of it, and well deserved. But he's at like his absolute prime right now. I mean, this is like 28-year-old LeBron James, Erik Spoelstra coaching right now the Miami Heat. That's what he's doing. He's just in the zone right now. I don't think there's anybody better in the field.
That's got it. Look, I 100% agree with you. I like the buzz that he's getting. I don't know if we can bang 2 consecutive weeks worth of drums regarding postseason accolades. You know, we're already starting the trend towards Bam for a defensive player of the year. I don't know if we can get Spo to get the coach of the year.
Don't sell yourself short, David. I think we can get this done. Look, Tyler's already
17
got 6
games
man of the
this
year
season.
wrapped up, so we
locked up.
don't need to worry about that. We've got that handled.
How about that? How about
no,
this? If Spo goes 15-2, if Spo goes
Yeah.
15-2 over the last 17 games, is that enough?
Yes, I think he's done enough already. I really do. I think voters are going to feel bad that the Heat didn't get their flowers at the All-Star break, and they're like, you know what? Let's give Spo Coach of the Year, number one. If as long as they have the number 1 seed, I think they'll get Coach. I think he'll get Coach of the Year. I could see that. I don't see Bam getting Defensive Player of the Year. I think it'll end up being Rudy Gobert. I just think voters are lazy that way.
Yeah, no, I mean Utah's a pretty good team too, but I don't think Gobert.
And Gobert's awesome.
Yeah, but Gobert gets played off the floor in a way that Bam never has. But anyway,
not as much lately. I know we're not doing a Gobert thing, but not as much lately. Like he's been really good on the perimeter this year. Zach Lowe had a great thing on Friday with a little bit of a video breakdown on his 10 things, and like if you're like really upset about Bam not getting Defensive Player of the Year, go watch those clips and you'll be like, all right, at least this guy sort of deserved it too.
All right. Well, we'll talk a little bit about Victor Oladipo and some of the next week's worth of upcoming games, and then, of course, bigger questions regarding this past week that I'm going to address in the in the third segment. But first, just a reminder that this show is brought to you by Bet Online. Football might be over the season, but basketball's in full steam for both pro and college hoops. From all the latest odds, totals, player performance props, and where the next fired coach is going to land, BetOnline.net is the number 1 spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. It's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, and UFC odds. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts.
Thank you for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. For your second listen, make sure to check out the Locked On Now podcast. Local reports from your local experts every day. The biggest stories in the NBA. It's time to make some predictions for the week. David, it is time for Nostradamus. Let's look ahead to this week's worth of games. It starts tonight against the Houston Rockets. We have a big return coming.
That's right. In theory, anyway, something that we'll talk a little later. But I think the bigger question here is if Victor Oladipo does in fact return on Monday, and it's looking like that's likely to happen. Just for reports coming out just before we started recording this, that he is now listed as questionable, so no longer out, absolutely questionable, which means it's just another matter of him working out and seeing whether or not he's available to go on Monday before possibly activating. But what role, if he does wind up playing, will Victor Oladipo play?
So number 1, Victor Oladipo's playing this freaking game. I don't believe any of this stuff coming out from Heat camp. I don't.
Did you hear that from Erik Spoelstra's mom herself?
I heard this from the future. Victor Oladipo's playing.
Did you get the reference?
Game. Yeah, I did. Okay. I know you want to talk about that a little bit later, but this is happening. This is absolutely happening, and I actually think the role he will play is a rather significant one. I don't think that it makes a lot of sense to not play him a significant role. If you've been this patient with him, right, and sending him to Sioux Falls to work through these scrimmages, bringing him here, being as patient as he was, or as they were with him, I don't see them just saying, like, you know what, he can be the 10th guy, get in the fourth quarter, play a few minutes, let's just see. No. I think we see Victor Oladipo in the first quarter. I don't know when. I still think Tyler Herro is your 6th man and all these stuff. I don't know where Victor Oladipo slots in the rotation. What I will tell you is he will have a significant role in the rotation, because this is the chance. This is the opportunity for the test drive, isn't it? And there's no point in doing the test. Like, you don't take the car off the lot and then just bring it right back into the lot. And you're like, yeah, I'll take that car. No, you want to bring it on the highway. You want to do the whole thing. Let's see how this really goes. Like let me see what I'm getting here. And I think that's what the Heat are going to do with Oladipo. They're going to take him on the highway. They're going to floor it for a little bit, push it to 80 miles an hour and see what happens. Does it break? I don't know. We'll see. But I see Victor Oladipo tonight playing a significant role, and I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. I hope it does wind up working out that way. And for those of you who are listening and watching and didn't get that reference regarding Spo's mom, following the game on Saturday after the win over Philadelphia, Erik Spoelstra was asked about the return of Victor Oladipo because, as we reported last week, or as we talked about last week, there were reports that Oladipo is targeting Monday and that return. But Spo
that
kind
was
of
our
dismissed
educated guess. We should give ourselves some credit here. That was our educated
Absolutely.
guess.
Yeah, well deserved. Spo also kind of shot that down a little bit, kind of played coy, threw some red herrings out there. One of the things that he said half jokingly was that he wishes his mom would start a Twitter account just so she could tweet out updates, unconfirmed updates regarding some star players and things of that sort. So we'll see what happens. I think, and you think both, that Oladipo will return on Monday. Again,
This
just
is
the
just that
fact that he's
weird.
listed as questionable. Yeah,
Yeah,
and yeah.
It's all for show.
To your
I don't
point.
understand why the Heat do this, man. Like, I know that they want to control the message. I don't know if this is like a weird, like crazy maniacal Spoelstra thing where he's like, God forbid the crappy Houston Rockets know whether or not we're playing one of our guys off the bench from like a game planning perspective. I don't get it. Just own it. Like
Yeah.
Spo, man.
And
Just
how do you
own it.
game plan for somebody that hasn't played all year? It's like we saw him 4 times last year.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
with a
like the Rockets
completely
don't
different
care.
team.
They're losing games on purpose. They're like, yeah, bring Oladipo out. Let him score 30 on us. We don't care. We're trying to get
Yeah.
a top pick.
Now, one team who will care about Victor Oladipo is coming into town on Wednesday, and that is the top of the Western Conference, Phoenix
Oh my
Suns.
God.
Wes, is
Yeah.
this a finals preview?
I am so hyped for this game, David.
Yeah.
Phoenix Suns, number 1 in the West. Miami Heat, number 1 in the East and rolling right now. I don't know whether or not the Heat win this game. Frankly, I don't even really care. I'm really excited to just see this matchup. You've got me. We talked about Coach of the Year at the top of the show. I think it's between Spo and Monty Williams. I think it's between, and not say that there's not a bunch of other guys that are deserving. It is a crowded field this year, and deservedly so. But I do think at the end of the day, it'll be between those two for most voters. And sure, fine. And honestly, if it goes to Monty Williams, can't even fault it. What he's doing in Phoenix this year shouldn't be overlooked. Beating the finals hangover from last year and all that stuff, they are rolling. I think that the Phoenix Suns have been the best team in the league from the start to now, all season long. They are balanced. They have star power. They're well coached. Everything you could want: size, versatility, 3-point shooting, all that stuff. This is going to be a tremendous matchup. Is it a finals preview? I think it's possible. I think obviously the Heat have a chance. We've talked about that all season long, but we haven't really talked about Phoenix. Who are you taking over Phoenix right now in the Western Conference? The Warriors are not playing well. Memphis is playing really well. Utah is playing really well, but I don't know how I feel about them against Phoenix, right?
No,
Like,
not confident. Not confident at all.
the Suns might be the safest bet in the NBA.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, the Suns are playing better than anybody, and I think you can make that same argument about Miami. You look at both these teams, and to your point, a lot of similarities shared between them. Well coached, lots of depth, great leadership from the point guard position. We have no idea whether or not Kyle Lowry will be available on Wednesday. We assume that he probably won't be, but we'll see what happens.
I think to Ira Winderman's credit from the Sentinel, he reported that Javonte Smart is actually headed back to the G League, right? So he's going back down to Sioux Falls. So that could be sort of a precursor, as Ira Winderman said, to Lowry possibly rejoining the team. Now that's just his guess, I guess, but he's plugged in.
Not tied to Victor's return. That's not.
I mean, it could be too. It could be too, right? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, to your point, we don't really know if Lowry will be back. That's a good point.
I know a lot of people are already saying, "Oh yeah,
but they won't have Chris Paul."
Yeah. Oh yeah, and look, everybody's saying, "Oh, they beat Phoenix without Jimmy, etc." I don't remember exactly what that lineup was. I know there were a couple key players that were missing, but either way, it's going to be a great matchup. It's fun, and yes, I do think it is going to be a finals preview. But Friday is going to be another tough matchup against another great team in the Eastern Conference, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Nostradamus, excuse me. Will the Heat get their first win against these big Cavs?
So before I give you my answer, the Heat are 0-2 against the Cavaliers this year. They've lost these games to Cleveland by an average of 18.5 points. Now, they were, in both of those games, without Jimmy Butler and without Bam Adebayo. So I don't know how much you can draw from those games, but considering that the Heat beat a bunch of teams without Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo this year anyway, I think that's more a testament to Cleveland than it has anything to do with the Heat. I do think that the Heat get their first win of the year against the Cavaliers. I think the Heat are rolling, playing as well as they have all season long right now. And Cleveland's playing well. I think after 0-2, it's just really hard to beat a team 3 times, and I think Miami gets the win at home. I do. And to Cavaliers fans out there, I know that we got a lot of criticism in our comments about saying, hey, Cleveland is getting swept, or maybe not swept, but there's no way they make it out of a playoff round. They're not a team built for the playoffs. They're too young to make it to the finals. And just to those Cavaliers fans, I just want to say, I stand by it. I double down. You're not making it out of the first round. I'm standing by it. Boom. Bring it on.
Look, they're gone 0-3 over the last. They've gone 0-3. They've lost their last 3 games, 4-6 over their last 10. I think the All-Star break kind of caught them at a bad time when they were building momentum, and I think that's the part of this team that people are kind of overlooking. Like similar to what we're saying about Memphis, or what I've said about Memphis, is that as fun as they are, as great as they have these individual guards and John Morant or Darius Garland. Whatever. Yeah, exactly. Great story. Do great stories translate to the NBA like playoffs? No, not necessarily. Not in terms of wins, losses. That's not what's going to count.
I know this is off topic, but you mentioned John Morant there. Are you doubting the Grizzlies a little bit in the Western Conference?
Hell yeah.
Really?
I'm not a believer. Yeah, I'm not a believer
Too young
at all.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think they're improving. I just don't. We've seen it. I made this point on Locked On NBA last week that I think when you have a team led by a singular talent like John Morant and the disparity he causes within Memphis's own offense, that as much fun as he is, you can find ways to limit him to some degree, or even let him go off and shut everybody else down and see whether or not you can pull out a victory. I think it's not going to translate as well to the playoffs.
I disagree with you a little bit. I was with you. I'm starting to warm up to Memphis a little bit more. I just think their defense and their rebounding is a little bit more translatable. The thing is, their 3-point shooting isn't any good, and if somebody gets hot, that changes things. I don't want to do a whole Grizzlies thing. I thought it was just worth bringing up because we were talking about Phoenix before.
Yeah. And look, right. that would be a fun finals matchup as well too. Heat Memphis.
I think Memphis. The interesting thing about Memphis is I'm with you. I don't see them making it to the finals. I'm not writing them off. I just wouldn't predict that they do it. But they are a tough matchup for a couple of teams in the West, and they could really F some things up for some teams that have hopes of getting to the finals.
Yeah. We'll talk a little bit about some of those key players in the Eastern Conference and whether or not their playoff numbers might be a concern for Miami in the next segment. But before we do that, just a reminder that this show is brought to you by Built Bar. Look, we've talked about Built Bar all year long. We tied it together as a New Year's resolution because so many people make those. And it's so hard to stick with. But the thing is with Built Bar, it's not about having a resolution at all. It's just about eating healthy and getting a great tasting treat that you can incorporate into your diet, to your workout regimen, whatever it is that you're looking for in terms of food. Built Bar is a solution for you. Soft, 100% covered in chocolate, easy to chew, and it tastes great. So many delicious flavors to choose from. You can get a mixed box with all of your favorites. You get all the nutrients you're looking for. So many different types. You're bound to find one that appeals to you, or if not, find a couple and see, taste them out, see which one you like best. And if you like all of them, again, you can get that mixed box. It's such a great opportunity to get Built Bars and incorporate them into your diet and get all the protein and nutrients that you might be looking for without sacrificing any of the taste. And best of all, if you go to built.com right now and use the promo code LOCK15, you get 15% off your order, but only if you use the promo code LOCK15, then you'll get 15% off if you go to built.com. Just a reminder that you can always reach us via email at lockedonheat@gmail.com or via Twitter using the hashtag AskLHeat. Be sure to please subscribe to the show as always and leave a review. We're this close to 2,000 subscribers on YouTube. So many of you have signed up to get the daily notifications about our show. We appreciate all of it. But if you can help us reach that goal before the, I'm sure we'll reach it. Well, I'm hopeful that we'll reach it before the end of March. But do what you can. End of the week. Yeah, let's make that our goal. Let's get to $2,000 by the end of the week. I think we'll make it. But you know what? It's Monday, Wes. You know what that means? That means I've got a whole weekend worth of anger brewing up, which means it's time for Monday Madness. And this is damn right. Play that music. It's time to get angry, baby. Start off your week with a little hatred, a little anger, a little pure rage. And I'm focusing the rage on two Philadelphia 76ers player, but kind of looking at it as far as a concern I have about them too. First of all, when it was announced that James Harden was going to be missing Saturday's game, saw so many people, including some local outlets, tweeting about various entertainment venues, strip clubs, regarding James Harden and whether or not they were responsible for his absence. Of course, the team made it quite clear that this was already programmed, that he was going to be missing the second night of a back-to-back. It has nothing at all to do with Harden being at Tootsie's till 6 in the morning or anything like that. And I just think it's really damn corny. Like, I know it's fun, but it's also kind of corny to play it off like, oh yeah, the strip clubs. That's what's keeping James Harden out of the lineup. Not like he couldn't go to Tootsie's till 5 in the morning and still drop 40 on any team on any given night. Like, I don't want to prop him up, but I also don't appreciate the constant, oh, these guys can't handle going to the club. They're NBA players. They don't have to do anything until 8 o'clock the following night. They can sleep it off. Believe me, I'm not too worried about whether or not Harden goes to a club and whether or not he's going to be functional the next day. Because, well, if he's been going to clubs as often as people like to joke, it's still turned out pretty good for one of the top 75 players of NBA history. Anything to add regarding?
I'm with you. Like, look, a joke is funny the first few times, and after a while, even a funny joke isn't that funny anymore. You can only hear the same joke so many times, right? And that's just every time. Like, it doesn't matter. You could switch up the strip club. I don't care. But it's still the same joke. Doesn't matter to me. If James Harden was munching on chicken tenders at Tootsie's at 5 in the morning and everybody wants to make a joke about that, go for it. But
what's the place in Atlanta? Lou Williams and lemon pepper wings. Magic City.
Magic City. Yeah. No, I get it. Like, it's funny. It's funny at first. You're right. Think of it's not that it's you're right. You're not trying to prop up or defend James Harden. You're just saying come up with new material. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Come up with new material. We have to do it every day. We come up with new material every day. If you're going to tweet something about a strip club, hey, guess what? You're not being original anymore. So that's sort of like a tweeter. That's like a Twitter thing too. Like, my least favorite tweet is like you retweet something like what's happening in the WNBA, right? Or no, not WNBA, women's college basketball. Like, hey, we're increasing our funds and everything. It's like, all right, cool. Like, everybody agrees that that's a good thing. Like, yeah, you should increase the funding of it. But to just retweet that and be like, finally clapping emoji. It's like, what are you adding to the conversation? Like, give me something new. Give me something more. Like, just like hey, the good thing is really good tweet is like not from a content perspective, be better.
Yeah.
Give me something new.
Speaking of being better, however, the second half of my rage is directed at Joel Embiid, because I've got to tell you, MVP candidate or not, I cannot stand watching that guy go to work on a hardwood floor. Like, his game is as ugly, translates even worse than Giannis Antetokounmpo's. Like,
thank God you missed James Harden being there too. I mean, you would have been there the rest of it. You would have been in there. You would have been in there until Tootsie's closed. Watching that game with how many foul attempts
I would have had to go just to keep myself entertained, and so I'd rather go there than watch free throw after free throw. And look, this big doofus falling all over his size 18 feet. Just like you could fart anywhere near him, and somehow you're going to knock all 400 pounds of him to the ground. I find it ludicrous. Like, he throws his head back like 150-pound Kemba Walker. It's like, dude, you're the biggest guy in the NBA. What the hell are you doing? Like, what how can you continue to work the rest like this? And how can they continue to fall for themselves? Like, I mean, just be better. You've got all these skills. You can shoot from perimeter. You can shoot from you've got this nice polished low post repertoire. What are you doing? You need to get to the free throw line 10 times just to boost your numbers. It's
12 times. He's averaging 11.6 a game. It's crazy.
Chicken shit behavior, and I won't stand for it.
Between Embiid, 11.6 free throw attempts per game, James Harden, 8.1 free throw attempts per game. These games, Philadelphia, it's a great duo. I think they complement each other well. I don't think there's any doubt about that so far. However, I hate watching the 76ers play now. I liked watching them when it was just Joel Embiid. That I could deal with. The two of them together, I mean, these games are baseball games now. They're taking 3.5 hours. I mean, it's crazy. It's just the free throw attempts. And this is like the biggest proof that we need just one shot for 2 points at the free throw line. I don't know how much that would speed it up, but at least we would just move on with our day a little bit more. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, I agree with you. But having said that, I also saw a lot of people kind of writing off the 76ers in the same breath, following the Harden news that he was out and the fact that, of course, he's going to be missing a bunch of games because he's going to be at the strip club all day or something like that. And then you look at Embiid and the obvious struggles that he had. But now everybody's kind of also writing them off. And I've seen a lot of tweets from Heat Nation regarding, the free throw, the fact that they get all these free throws, that's not going to translate to the playoffs. Miami's going to be able to mop the floor with them, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not saying both players can't be got or can't be defended well, especially by a team that defends as well as Miami. But the free throw thing is absolutely a myth. Their numbers in the playoffs back up the fact that they get to the line almost as much as they do at the regular season, with perhaps a slight drop off. Even a player like Harden, who's been to the Western Conference Finals and gone on deep playoff runs, he gets maybe one free throw less per game. That's not going to be the difference maker. It's not like you're slowing down Harden. And again, those are averages over the course of each playoff game, which means that for one game where he might get 4 calls, there might be another game where he gets 17, and that'll be a difference maker in any series. So you can't just write off these teams just because you don't think they're going to get free throws anyway. I mean, if they're going to be beat, and I think Miami absolutely has a good chance of beating Philadelphia, it's because of their depth, it's because of their defense, it's because of the better talent that they have, the more widespread talent that they have on this team compared to just the top 2 players. And look, shout out to Tyrese Maxey too, because I think a lot of Heat fans
he's awesome.
have opened their eyes about him. I can still say, look, I believed in the Locked On NBA mock draft that we had a couple of years ago. I thought the Heat would take him instead of taking Precious Achiuwa, who I had no idea, honestly, who he even was. And I didn't think there was any need for him. And sure enough, that proved pretty correct. But anyway, I digress.
They needed him to trade for Kyle Lowry. No, you're right. I mean, look, if the Sixers' downfall in the playoffs will be that James Harden's never been good in the playoffs. Not that he can't get to the free throw line. It's that he can't make shots that aren't on the free throw line. But to your point, the free throw numbers aren't any different. Last year, for example, Joel Embiid, 9.9 free throw attempts per game. In the playoffs, he had 10.7 per game in the regular season. So basically the same. James Harden, 6.9 free throw attempts in the playoffs, 7.3 in the regular season. Again, basically the same. And when you consider that and that's just free throw attempts per game, that's not per 100 possessions or a free throw percentage rate or anything like that. When you consider that in the playoffs, you tend to have fewer possessions per game than you do in the regular season, you could look at the free throw rates and they're probably either equal or even higher. They're probably getting to the line even more in the playoffs than they do the regular season when you kind of take a percentage breakdown of it. And this year, Embiid's free throws are up 11.6. Harden is up to 8.1 a game. So, that's not going to be the issue for the Sixers. The issue for the Sixers is that James Harden craps the bed like he has his entire career in the postseason. That's going to be the issue for Philadelphia.
Yeah, I agree there. And look, a lot of that has to do with the fact that he was carrying teams where he was being asked to do a lot. And that's why he wound up being fatigued. And again, that fatigue, not strip club related. At least I sincerely doubt. I can't imagine any player in the NBA going, "Oh man, what a night I had."
I'd like to win a championship, but I'd rather go to a strip club for the umpteenth time. Yeah,
right.
I mean, maybe. Maybe there are some players that'll do that.
He's got a great contract. That's a lot of singles worth. I don't know. I'm sure he can enjoy himself regardless. But you know what? I'm sure you'll be enjoying yourself watching this show. We'll have the latest regarding Victor Oladipo, the matchup against the Suns, and so much more this week. So make sure that you continue staying on to Locked On Heat and making it your first listen every day. Make sure you make your second listen Locked On NBA. Locked On experts, covering the biggest stories around the NBA every Monday through Friday. Of course, less than 30 minutes per show, and also free and available wherever you get podcasts. So that'll do it for today. Thanks for starting your week off with us. I'm David Ramil signing off. Thanks for joining me, Wes.
Wrap it up, B.